Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today on the channel we're going to talk about whether or not China actually told its population, its entire population, to stockpile food for the winter. And if this is true, what might that actually entail and imply for the rest of us? Let's get to it. Alright guys, so it's hot take time once again. I'm not an expert on global affairs. Be sure to absolutely go and do your own research because I could be dead wrong about all of this. Now, I always go to the source when I hear stories like this. For starters, you never know what the government over there is telling its population, whether or not that's true. So you have a truth dilution on that level. Then you have the great firewall truth dilution level. Then, of course, once it gets to our mainstream media, it's subject to our own interpretation by our mainstream media. And then, of course, word gets spread around. So it's a big game of telephone. And oftentimes, the truth is seriously diluted throughout this process. Now, if you actually go to the source and you translate the page, this is by the Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China. The actual statement that they released isn't as foreboding as a lot of the MSM in the westernized countries are making it out to be. Are they warning their local authorities within the various districts? Because remember, China is a country of 1.5 billion people. This is a vast country. So for people to think that they're just going to come out and warn their entire, what we perceive to be a homogenous population, which of course it isn't. There's a variety of different dialects and cultures. For us to think that they're going to come out and give this grand statement like this to their entire population, quite possibly provoking panic, I think it's jumping the gun a little bit. And when you actually read the statement that they released, it is more geared towards local authorities. The wording is a lot more careful than it's being made out to be. I'll post a link to the actual article, which you're going to have to use Google Translate in order to get the translation. And of course, Mandarin to English translation is always a little bit difficult, so you're not always going to get the exact semantic what they intended it to say. But I want to take a break for a second here. Could you just imagine? Could you imagine what would happen if this happened in a Western country where the government actually said, you guys need to go and stockpile food because there's going to be a major food shortage? What do you think the reaction would be? It would be absolute chaos. Even when the government was saying, don't worry about anything, everything's going to be fine. Back in March of 2020, we seen what happened. Okay, there was a run on the stores. There was supply shortages, all the rest. Now, just imagine for a second what would actually happen if they prompted people to do that. There would be riots. It would quickly devolve to the point where you'd see so many viral videos of people fighting over stuff in stores, and that would just feed into this idea that there was really true scarcity and people had to get it while they can. Part of the reason why we live in a very individualistic culture, meaning over here we have this free market mentality where it's every man for himself, and that has brought us great innovation and abundance, and it's a system I enjoy and would not replace for anything else. That's just my personal opinion, but I'm totally open to hear your perspective on it. Now, when you look at the psychology of people over there, this is proven in psychological testing between East and West. People over there tend to be a lot more communally oriented. Even if they were to release a statement like this over there, even if they weren't trying to be indirect about it, there's a very good chance that the response would not be as chaotic as it would be here. Now, let's just talk about the reasons. Let's take this at its face value with what all of the MSM is interpreting as, and I'm talking about CNN, I'm talking about Bloomberg. This wasn't just a one-off article that was published on some fringe website. This is actually all over the mainstream media. Now, the reason that they're providing is multifold. Number one, there is a resurgence of the virus over there, and we never really know what that really entails, but China has a zero tolerance policy for that. They're putting these alarms on people's doors. If you open your door, it signals the Gestapo to come and pick you up. All this draconian stuff, the same old that we've seen last year. There was an incident recently where they locked down the entirety of Shanghai Disneyland because they found one case, okay? So they are really trying to regulate this thing down to the case. So if we apply Occam's razor and we look for the simplest solution as to why this is going on, it's namely to do with the fact that they think there's going to be a major resurgence of the virus this winter. Because remember, if it's starting now at the beginning of winter, there's a greater chance, because people's immune systems and these things just tend to spread a bit more indoors and all the rest. They might be really concerned about a major outbreak, which is going to force the shutdown of a lot of the manufacturing sector, a lot of the production and processing of agricultural commodities. So this is potentially why they're trying to get local authorities to ensure that they have an adequate stockpile and that they're going to fix the prices so that the prices don't get out of control. Another thing we need to remember here is a lot of this is political, okay? Potentially. I'm not saying it is. I don't want to be so absolute about it. It's potentially political because the CCP doesn't want the people starving and getting disgruntled because the price of food is so high, okay? You don't want to upset your population in that way. It could potentially destabilize the country. Now, they've also endured some pretty wild weather. There's droughts in certain regions. There's major flooding in certain regions. This has caused increases in food prices. As well, there's been many of these incidents happening all over the world with droughts and food shortages and crops just being destroyed. And this, of course, is raising the global price of food. What this all means then, you have a perfect storm of events brewing here for China, which is why they're putting their local authorities on notice. And apparently they intended this statement not to be addressed to the average person. Now, when I read it on Google Translate, that's what the vibe I was getting, is that this is more geared towards local authorities, municipalities, states, counties, whatever they have there, as opposed to being geared towards individuals. However, that's how the MSM is interpreting it. They came in afterwards and they tried to walk it back and they said, look, we're not trying to create any panic. This is not geared towards individuals. This is mainly to ensure that local authorities can get a handle on food prices so they could keep those things at an achievable price point to basically avoid civil unrest. We also know China is in the midst of a major energy shortage, which is why they failed to participate in, what was it called, COP26 or something like that.
How dare you!
Part of the reason why is because there's this huge coal shortage as a result of everything starting up again all of a sudden, and this major demand and all the supply chain shortages and all whatnot. You have rolling blackouts, you have potential food shortages, and you have this whole tension with Taiwan, which I don't think they're really in a position to address right now. I don't think they're going to go for it until they're a little bit stronger economically. I just think right now they're not in a position where they're really able to mount the kind of offensive that they need to without incurring a lot of collateral damage. Because in my mind, if China threw everything they had at Taiwan, they easily could probably go in there and steamroll the place. I know some people don't agree with that. Some people really think that the U.S. is going to get involved in all this. I think that that's unlikely simply because of the fact that all of our stuff comes from there. The U.S. is not in a position to manufacture its own goods and services. Now, if that put us on some kind of like World War II footing and you mobilize the entire population to manufacture like they did in World War II, I can't see our population really jumping into that. I mean, really just look around this virtual space. Are we really, as a society, ready to regress into industrial revolution mode, manufacturing mode? Stupid. I can't see it, okay? Not unless we can invent some robots to do all the work for us. So that is why I think the United States is bluffing. That's just my personal opinion. You might have a different opinion because, quite frankly, if those ships ever stop being sent over here, there would be riots and panic in the streets. So I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's all a bluff. I think that the whole chip manufacturing stuff, they're trying to work with the Taiwan chip manufacturing company, I can't remember exactly what it's called, to make chips in the US. And I think that's in anticipation of the inevitable takeover of Taiwan, of China. Now, some people might agree with that. Some people might not. All I wanted to tell you guys was that I think that this may be twisted. This may be misrepresented, this statement from the CCP. That's not saying that they're not warning their local authorities of a potential shortage as a result of the virus, namely the crops which have been ravaged, which has increased the price of food, and of course the increased cost of energy. All of these things are leading towards potential shortages, and they want to make sure that they get ahead so there is no civil unrest and political instability, because that's the last thing they need right now on their plate. And of course, we don't know how the population on the ground over there is truly responding to any of this because of the Great Firewall. We really just don't know what is going on. Let me know what your thoughts are on this matter in the comment section below. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I somewhere in between? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and go check out our new collaborative channel, Think Preparedness. Myself, City Prepping, Full Spectrum Survival, The Urban Prepper. We're going to be getting together, I think, bi-weekly or perhaps monthly to do long-form discussions about all things preparedness, a little bit of current events. We're going to focus on some general topics as well. And we might even be releasing more short-form educational content to kind of fill in the gaps, because we might not be doing that many frequent uploads. Personally, I love having these long-form conversations with like-minded people where we talk about preparedness in the context of current geopolitical events. So go and subscribe to the channel. I assure you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.